Anyway, I want to thank Diane for allowing me to talk to you today about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that's the Portia etch. And as Diane mentioned, this is the first of 4 presentations that we're going to have today. Portia, Marjorie, Diane, Elaine. And because we're taping and we're on a very tight time schedule this morning, I'm going to ask that we hold all the questions to the tail end of the presentation. Okay? And also because we're taping and because I'm going to try to get, or not too far off subject here, I'm going to try to keep close to my notes here. So bear with me in that regard as well. Last night at the dinner, I had about too many cups of iced tea. So as I was trying to get some rest last night, it's tossing and turning. So I went through this presentation in my head about 12 different times, 12 different versions of this presentation. So I'm not quite sure which one you're going to get today. So bear with me. I hope it's the one with a happy ending. Okay? It might not be, though. It might be the one where we pass the hat at the end, so that we collect some funds to fund my glass addiction. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So I guess to begin, I want to acknowledge some other Portia collectors that are in our organization. I went through the attendee list for convention, and I noted that out of 145 people that registered, we have only 3 Portia collectors, 2 other than myself. And we have Nancy Meisel. Is Nancy here? Okay, Nancy's over there. And we have Lisa Strebler. Is Lisa here? Lisa. Okay. All righty. So if I get stuck with any questions, I'm going to ask Nancy to help me out. And if we can't figure out the answer, then we'll have to phone a friend. We'll get Lisa out of the convention, and we'll do our best to answer the questions. And if we can't get to your question, because we are kind of tight on time, I'm here for the next couple of days. Be more than happy to talk to you about any aspect of what is shown here today. Okay? So to begin, I'd like to start by reading a few sentences from an article, Freeman, that I'm putting together for the Crystal Ball, Freeman, on the topic of Portia, Freeman. And it's entitled, In Search of the Elusive Miss Portia. So bear with me. Let me just read this to you. It all began innocently enough. A simple stroll through a Sunday morning flea market on a crisp, late autumn morning. There unobtrusively sat what would become my first purchase of Cambridge glass. A simple, square, 4-toed bowl. Assigned 3400/4, crystal bowl to be exact, and it was etched Portia. So out of place with modern design, yet so geometrically simple and pure. The elderly dealer held it up so it would catch the first rays of that cold morning sun. And I remember distinctly her first comment, "I think it's Rose Point." This is the bowl that started it all for me. This is the 3404, and it's signed with the triangle C. And I saw it on the flea market table, and that's a true story. Rose Point. Well, when I saw the triangle C, that led to me doing some additional investigation and finding about NCC, and lo and behold, 30 years later, here I am, right? So that was 30 years ago this coming November that happened, and that would make this my 29th convention. I missed one in 1987 when my son was born. So cut me some slack, will you? All right? Okay. All right, so what do we know about Portia? Portia is known as Etch 754. It was quietly introduced into the marketplace with little fanfare in late 1931 or early 1932. We really don't know the exact date for sure because there was no major proclamations in the significant trade journals of the day. The event occurred with little written acknowledgement. In a similar fashion, Portia quietly bailed out sometime between March of 1952 and February of 1953, again with little notice or recognition after a bright 20-year life in the marketplace. We really don't know for sure why the name Portia was chosen. It was not any Cambridge employee's mother, daughter, granddaughter, niece, nephew, whatever, as far as we know. We know that A.J. Bennett's wife's name was Martha, and his daughter's name was Marjorie, and his granddaughter's name was Betty. 10 points. Okay. All of those have been honored by Cambridge Etchings, and you could look them up in the Etchings book. All right, so Portia was not the most popular name. It placed 1511th in the popularity game among girls' names in 1932. Patricia might have been a better choice. It was fifth in popularity in 1932, or Mary, Barbara, Joan, or even Shirley. All those names were in the top 10 back in the day. The link may have been through A.J. Bennett's English heritage and the Shakespearean play Merchant of Venice. Portia was the heroine. She was portrayed as being beautiful, gracious, rich, intelligent, quick-witted, just like everybody here in the room, right? Right? The reconstructed Royal Shakespeare Theatre in Stratford-on-Avon in England burned down in 1926. It was under reconstruction and was scheduled to be open to the public in 1932. So that was floating in the news as well at that point in time. So that may have influenced the name choice. Does anyone remember Portia's discourse from The Merchant of Venice? Sharon? Sharon? Go ahead. Anybody? The quality of mercy is not strained. Very good. You know the rest of it? Right. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It's twice. You want here? Come on up here. You want the? Yeah. It's twice blessed. It blesseth him that give and him that take. Very good. Very good. I'm going to sit down now, and you can do the rest of it. But I guess this isn't ninth grade English Lit, so I guess we'll talk about glass. So Portia first appeared in the 1932 supplement to the Cambridge Glass Catalog, which was originally released in January of 1930. A scant 4 pages were devoted to the new release. 3 of the 4 pages highlighted multiple stemware sizes in 3121, 3126, and 3124. And the 4th page in that initial release was devoted to various accessory pieces from the 3400 line. There were 19 in total, and all of these have seen limited production, and they're very hard to find today. And from that initial catalog, 34, I brought some samples. Here's the 119 basket, right here. This one is faintly signed on the bottom. Very faintly pick up the triangle C on that. Then we have the 3.5-inch puff box right here. And we have an array of goblets. Here's the 3121 stem. This is gold encrusted. We have the 3126 stem, which happens to be my favorite stem. I love the 3126 stem. The stem themselves are identical. The bowl is what's different. The 3126, as you can see, has like a cinched waist to it. So, and these were, I think, 9 ounces, and this was classified at 10 ounce, and they're about a ½ inch difference in height. And also in that initial release, we had the 3124 stem. 3124. Let me just go over here. 3124, right there. And the way you tell the 3124, they're like 2 diamond pieces of glass at the top, for lack of better descriptors. They look like diamond nodules. And then below that, you've got the round disco ball. Looks like a disco ball. And then a third and final diamond notch at the bottom. So that's a 3124 stem. Has a rounded bowl. 3122 has the same stem, but it's more V-shaped. Okay? All right. The earliest written reference to Portia was described in a May 1932 advertisement placed in the Pittsburgh newspaper by Hoffman's department store. The banner read, "Portia, a new service, lace on glass." So how many of you are reminded of lace when you look at the Portia etch? Nobody. Everybody's just, okay. I don't think of lace. I see flowers coming out of a basket when I look at it, but maybe that's a guy thing. I don't know. Flowers out of a basket, not to be confused with Bordeaux, right? A similar etch from Cambridge, 1924. Dresden was another similar basket etch from 1921. Actually, there were approximately 7 Cambridge etchings that resembled some type of basket or urn with flowers. And the bulk of those were from 1927. We had a real bumper crop in 1927. We had etchings 701, 705, 710, 733. And write those down because there'll be a quiz later. But if you want to see what those look like, they're in the etchings book, right? Etchings by Cambridge, Volume 1. So you could take a look, see what those look like. So getting back to Kaufman's, in support of the 1932 store promotion, they had 3 display tables, which were set up by the elevators, so that the Portia etching could be prominently displayed in crystal, amber, and gold crystal. Okay? Finding Portia in a translucent color today is a significant task. When it is found, in all probability, you're going to find it in amber or gold crystal. Amber was introduced in 1924 and gold crystal in 1929. And both of those colors were established in the marketplace by 1932, and they were logical supplements to a production that would become overwhelmingly crystal. Right? Today, you find Portia overwhelmingly in crystal. We'll talk a little bit more about color in a second. But I want to get back to the period of the early 30s. It was a time of real renaissance and creative growth for the Cambridge Glass Company. Just in terms of major new etches alone, or etchings, we saw the introduction of Gloria and Apple Blossom in 1930. We saw Diane in 1931, Portia 1932, Elaine 1933, Rose Point 1934, Wildflower, Candlelight 1935, and so on. So there was a real wave of excitement and creative energy that existed in the Cambridge environment at that point in time, but you got to contrast that with what was going on in the world, and you really get an interesting comparison. On September 3 of 1929, the Dow Jones Industrial Average hit a historic high of 381.17. 7 weeks later, what happened? Black Friday. And what happened on Black Friday? Crashed. The stock market crashed. At the end of Black Friday, which was on October 29th, 1929, the Dow closed at 230.07. Now, everybody thinks of Black Friday as being the bottom of the crash, but in reality, the Dow continued to dive for the next 34 months, and it cratered on July the 8th of 1932, about the time the Portia was being rolled out, and at that point in time, it hit a depression low of 41.22. Now, what are we at today? 17,000? So 41 versus 17,000. To give you an idea of how different times were back then. And here, this is the environment that Porsche is being rolled out in. Market value of the world's greatest corporations declined an incredible 89% from their peak. Millions of investors' life savings wiped out. Thousands of speculators borrowed money to buy stocks into bankruptcy, right? 11,000 of the nation's 25,000 banks had failed. America was mired in the deepest economic depression in history. And when I hear this, I think, how was an organization or a company like the Cambridge Glass Company even able to keep their head above water, yet come out with all these creative, innovative products? It's just, to me, the contrast is very striking. Think about this. In 1932, when Porsche was being introduced, 25% of the population was unemployed. 25%. Half of the population was considered to be in desperate circumstances. Both the U.S. government and corporate America initiated wage cuts, up to 30% for those lucky enough to have a job. Wage cuts. And to add further insult to injury, working hours for those who were fortunate enough to have a job were cut. This happened at the Cambridge factory as well. Cambridge wasn't immune to the Depression by any means. Management salaries were cut. Worker attendance in some cases was limited to just 1 day per week. But through all this, Mr. Bennett attempted to keep all of his employees on the payroll. In July of 1932, Charles Degenhardt reported in the American Flint magazine, and I'll quote him here, "Conditions at the Cambridge plant are the same as last month. That's 4 days per week, one furnace, one of the 3 furnaces running. Some are only getting 1 turn, approximately 4 hours of work, and it looks like it's going to be that way for the rest of the summer." Think about that for a moment. 4 hours, if you survive on 4 hours pay, a week. Around the country, Hoovervilles, shantytowns popping up, tens of thousands loaded up their belongings, lived in their cars, went from place to place looking for work. Due to malnutrition and poor health, tuberculosis, of all things, was widespread. Tuberculosis in the U.S. So it was really quite a different time than today. And our federal government, how did they respond? Well, they came to the rescue with the Revenue Act of 1932, which raised the tax rates. Not lower them, but raised the tax rates across the board, with the rate on top incomes rising from 25 to 63%. Didn't know you were going to get an economics lesson this morning, did you? On June 6th, the federal government initiated the first federal gasoline tax, 1 cent a gallon. In addition, on July 6th, first-class postage was raised from 2 to 3 cents. And you say, well, okay, what's a penny, right? Well, that's quite a bit when you consider the gasoline was 10 cents a gallon. The average annual income, lucky enough for those people lucky enough to have a job, was $1,300 a month, $1,368 to be exact. And in 1932, Portia crystal dinner plates were selling at Kaufman's for $12.25 per dozen. So that's not really cheap by historical standards. In today's dollars, depending on your income level, you're talking a service of 12 for the dinner plates of between $500 to $1,000. So this stuff was not cheap. So times were tough, But amazingly, through all of this, people still felt optimistic enough to buy Cambridge glass. November 8th, Franklin Roosevelt to the rescue. 32nd President of the United States. Landslide election. 472 electoral votes to Hoover's. Anyone want to venture a guess? 59. 59. So the country wanted change. Meanwhile, back at the Cambridge factory, life continued to be chugging along. 1930 brought the arrival of, anybody know? Les touched upon it in his presentation, was it last year? On colors. Henry Helmers, 33 years old. And through his creativity and with his support and with the help of management that was really open-minded, the period from 31-32 saw the introduction of several new colors. 1931, we saw Amethyst and Carmine. That came out in February of that year. Royal Blue, June of that year. Forest Green in August of that year. And Heather Bloom, November of that year. And then in 1932, in September, Crown Tuscan was brought out. And there were people out there that were actually buying this stuff. You know, in addition to the, let's say, the insulated rich in this country, we know that Cambridge had an active export program to UK countries. Maybe that helped during the Depression, in part to sustain them. There were Cambridge representatives based out of London, England, in Melbourne, Sydney in Australia, in Wellington in New Zealand. And I've seen Portia pieces, and maybe you have too, or other etchings, on eBay that are from the Australian market. I was fortunate enough to be there a few years back, and I personally found amber pieces in Diane in an antique shop in Melbourne. They call it American glass over there. So if you want to be really trendy, you know, I got some of that American. Okay, Cambridge also had the varsity sports sport glassware. And after the end of Prohibition in 1933, and we know Prohibition ended with which amendment? Sharon? 1776? No. 1492? No. The 21st Amendment repealed the 18th Amendment, which was the Prohibition. That was in December of 1933. So beer and barware, glassware really helped the company. All right, we'll move on. We'll talk glass now. Enough of the economics and the history. The Cambridge Catalog supplement pages in 1933 and 34 again featured Portia items. This time Portia appeared in a supporting role along with other etchings such as Diane and Chintz No. 2, highlighting the introduction of exciting new opaque color Crown Tuscan. And from that 33 supplement, we have, and you can read along with the scorecard. Everybody has a scorecard. That's why we pass these out. So you have a souvenir of our discussion today. But from the that particular catalog, we have the 1307 candelabrum. It's signed. We have the 9-inch pillow vase. It has the black acid mark on the bottom. Trademark or signature, and we have the 1297 11-inch vase. Okay. All those pieces are signed. Anyone want to venture a guess why they are signed? Silence. It must be 9:30. The early Crown Tuscan pieces produced in 33 and 34 carry the mark. And we think it was only the first couple of years that carried the black acid etched marking in it. It didn't appear in 35 on any of the seashell line. I don't believe any's been found on Rose Point or any of the later etchings. So it's really limited to a 2-year piece. Crown Tuscan was in a line all the way to the end. But if you want the earliest Crown Tuscan, you look for that black mark on the bottom, and you know that it's probably from 33 or 34. There was a trend in the mid-30s to get away from the marking of the pieces with the trademark in general. The triangle C was removed slowly starting in the mid-30s based on a recommendation from the sales department, who felt that people just didn't want that on the bottom. That they didn't particularly appreciate the trademarking, although it's probably what's gotten most of us involved in this, is wondering about that. So upper management deleted it whenever the molds were reworked. Okay, moving along. When Portia appears in a gold encrusted format, right? It's listed as D1001. So there's 1,001 decorates out there in Cambridge, I guess. I don't know. Why they call it, but they do. And the decorate names vary depending on the etching that you have. Okay, Crown Tuscan is by far the most popular color available with Portia. So the top three would be Crown Tuscan, Amber, Gold Crystal, and then we go down from there. And we're going to talk about these in a second, so just bear with me. As Portia began to gain traction in the marketplace, it was supported by the Cambridge factory with a full complement of serving pieces, predominantly but not uniquely from the 3400 line. It's therefore not uncommon to find Portia etched pieces from this time frame that were never pictured in any Portia catalog release. For example, I have the sauce boat here with the liner, with the triangle C on the bottom. So we know that these are relatively early in Portia's life. I love finding the early crystal pieces that are signed. They just seem to be sharper. Maybe the molds haven't worn down, who knows, but they just look crisper to me and to my mind. That was shown in the 1930 catalog on page 25 in Decagon, but you won't find it mentioned anywhere in Portia. Here's another piece that might be of interest to some people. It's a 4.5 ounce claret, 3011, Cambridge nude, statuesque, etched Portia. You ain't going to find that in the book anywhere. You'll find the claret described in the catalog, but you're not going to find it showing with any of the Portia etching. This was probably, in all probability, a special order. The story on this one is it was a doctor from the East Coast whose daughter was getting married, and her name was Portia. And so he bought a set of 6, and there are 2 that I know of at this point. One here, and I think one went to California. And I don't know of any others out there. Anybody have a set of 12 that they like to sell? I don't care if they don't have the gold on it. I'll take them this way. So Cambridge, that was pretty common that you could get Portia items that were not shown in the catalog. Cambridge didn't subscribe to the production of catalog-only items. Catalogs were not as important as they are today and were used really as a general guide of product availability. Oftentimes, the regional showrooms would have display materials which exceeded what was placed in the Cambridge catalog. Commercial sales in that time period were more of a personal thing than they are today. Generally speaking, if you were a buyer from a department store, if you were attending one of the regional showrooms, or if you were being contacted by one of the sales reps from the factory, if you expressed an interest in Portia, you were informally told which of the blanks that you could get in Portia. If you had previously ordered a set of goblets or whatever in Diane, and you wanted it in Portia, they would probably, depending on the size of the order, in all probability would try to do it for you. Want it in Portia? You got it in Diane? Yeah, we can help you out here. How many? 6 dozen? 12 dozen? If you think about it, it takes quite a bit of energy and effort to maintain a live furnace. And we're talking the Depression years here. Sales were kind of scarce. So you want to maximize your output from that furnace to keep your costs down. So production was really king. There was no such thing as a bad order. They would try to do it for you because they were trying to keep those people working 4 hours a week, trying to keep that furnace running. And they had a couple other furnaces, I think, that were dormant. So production was king, and there really was no such thing as a bad order. All right, let's get back to color. This is a presentation on colors. So in addition to amber, gold crystal, and crown Tuscan, Portia is available in light emerald green, in peach blow, in willow blue, in forest green, in carmine. And carmine is like what? The holy grail for Portia collectors. It's the holy grail for most collectors, right? We won't talk about the ball jug that sold on eBay recently. And we know about that story. And if you don't, we'll talk later. But in addition to carmine, we have royal blue, heather bloom, and ebony. So that makes 11 colors. You know, I didn't think that there were that many until I started amassing this over the period of 30 years. But there are 11 colors in all, and I have examples here of most of them. So why don't I just kind of run through these first of all, and you can read along with your crib sheet. We have the amber 119 pitcher, not to be confused with the crystal 119 basket. The naming terminology that Cambridge used is beyond me. You know, why they used the numbering system that they did, how they came up with their numbers is beyond me. I'm sure there's probably some logic out there, some rationale. Maybe we could talk about that offline sometime. But I find that disparity in a lot of the things that they did. Okay, and I also brought the 3400 68 cream and sugar. These are gold encrusted, and the sugar is signed and the creamer is not. So that's amber. Then we'll move on to gold crystal. And we have the 3400 38 ball jug, gold encrusted. Right there. The 3414 is a 7-inch tall compote. It looks like a 3120 stem on it, doesn't it? Kind of. You can see it. Okay, and lastly, the 3400 135 bowl. You call this an enlarged ivy bowl, I guess, or a rose bowl, or an inverted flip bowl, or whatever. But this one is signed also. All right, after gold crystal, crown Tuscan, I brought the 8-ounce ball jug. Is Jeannie here? Jeannie. All right, this piece is signed. This is 64 ounces, 3400/144, 64 ounces. You don't find this in the 80-ounce size in crown Tuscan, etched Portia. Why? I don't know. And you don't find the 64 ounces in color. It just, maybe there's some out there because I've learned to never say never. They're probably, one day they may have done it, but why they chose to make what they made is beyond me. I guess they had a huddle with the sales department and they said, we're only going to give you one crown Tuscan pitcher. What do you want? And then, who knows? Maybe somebody said, oh, those big ones aren't selling. I need a, and that's how they wound up with that. But I've never seen an 80-ounce ball jug, gold encrusted Portia. Has anybody seen one in crown Tuscan? They don't exist. Okay. Enough for crown Tuscan. I get all the crown Tuscan. Oh, the 3005 10-inch globe. That'd be this one with the large keyhole. And then we have the 3102, which drops down from 10 to 9 inches, and it's a small keyhole. So 2 versions of keyhole. one of these pieces is signed and the other isn't. Early, and this could have been anywhere in the production period. All right, let's see. Peach Blow, ball jug, 80 ounce, 34.38. This was shown last night at Lynn's Bring and Brag. It was hidden, occluded by a little small piece that Richie brought. What was that? Gold. It was a Carmen gold encrusted Portia candy, right? Yeah. No, it didn't have any fingerprints on it either, right? Was that piece signed? Probably personally signed by Mr. Bennett, right? Okay. So my ball jug got hidden last night, but you can see it here. I have a 2-ounce oil Portia with the crystal. They have the crystal stoppers. That's how they did it. And moving on, we'll do Willow Blue. I have a 2-ounce Willow Blue oil. And when you put them together in the holder, it really makes an interesting conversation piece. You have Willow Blue on one side, and you have the Peach Blow on the other, and a crystal holder, and it makes for a really interesting conversation piece. I'm not going to pick those up because I think one would fly that way, one would fly that way. But did they come that way from the factory? Probably not, but it sure makes for an interesting conversation piece. All right, Heather Bloom. We're over here. Heather Bloom. Another ball jug, 80 ounce. Light emerald green, 76 ounce jug. Unsigned. Ice bucket. And this piece does carry the signature. And a 12-inch oval bowl, the 34-1240. On your handout, if you're wondering, on the far right, I've got the description of where the pieces can be found in the 3034 catalog. And you're not going to find them identified in, you're not going to see them in Portia. You'll see them in some other etching. But if you wanted to see how the blanks look, you can refer to that far right column. Okay, forest green. This is from the Strebler Foundation on loan. Is Lisa here? Lisa's not here. I talked Lisa out of this one last year. This is signed. Forest green. The 3401, no feet. 3404, they had feet, and then they flipped them and puffed them out and rolled them over. They had about 19 different variations of the bowl, right? One for every person that worked at the plant, I think. All right, Carmen. Anybody interested in Carmen? 3035, the only stem that I find Carmen gold encrusted Portia on that I've found, that I know of. 3035 has the ball at the top and then more of a tapering stem. This is the where am I? The 9-ounce goblet, 6-ounce goblet, the tall sherbet, gold encrusted, 3035, and then the 3-ounce. Get an idea of the size variation. You can see that my my Carmen gold encrusted Portia collection is sorely lacking. So if anybody feels sorry for me and would like to donate a piece or, help the poor guy out, come see me, we'll talk. Maybe we can work something out. All righty, keyhole candles. We'll go way over here. And I'll hold a few of them up. 646 in Heather Bloom gold encrusted, and this one is in amber gold encrusted. One has the 3400 decagon base. The other one is round. Decagon went away in the mid-30s. They were trying to brighten up the lineup, so they get away from more of the square base to the round. 646, 647 would be, this is in dianthus or peach blow. The two candle in peach blow. 646, 647. Now logic would say this would be 648, right? Wrong. You know, this is 638. Why Cambridge did it that way, I don't know. But that the triple, this one is in the light emerald green. The triple candle is 638. And I have the mates to all these back at home. You have gold crystal as well. 646, 647, 648 is this little handy dandy one here with the Bobochet on the top and the prisms. And specifically in your handout, if you were interested in knowing what number prism it is or Bobochet, I've got it there. Let's see, did I write it down here? 27, number 27 Bobochet, and 6 number 4 prisms. So that pretty much describes the color availability. The availability of Portia in color is not equally weighted, right? The color display here is not representative of what you would normally find in the marketplace. Approximately 94% of all Portia that is found today is in crystal. Of the remaining 6%, 2/3 will be in Crown Tuscan. I looked at 105 pieces that were listed on eBay during a 2-month period in January, ending January 16th. Only 7 Portia items were in color. 7. Out of those 7, 5 were gold encrusted Crown Tuscan. So that's predominantly the color you're going to find. After Crown Tuscan, amber, gold crystal, color availability falls off a cliff. It becomes senseless to attempt a ranking. Availability and color would be in a fraction of a percent, and you could go years without finding any of these pieces. Interestingly, there's another predominant color that's missing from here. Anybody want to venture a guess the color that you would think would be here? Amethyst, right? I've never seen a Portia etched piece in amethyst. Maybe you have. I think that there's probably some out there somewhere. Intellectually, you would think that there would be some amethyst Portia pieces. It was part of the Henry Helmer's Gang of Five that was released in 31, 32. You know, if you got Portia and forest green, carmine, royal blue, heather bloom, why not amethyst? Right? So I say generally speaking because I learned to say never because I'm sure there's someone out there that's got a 1242 gold encrusted Portia vase and amethyst that they would love to sell to me, right? Show of hands in the back, the nosebleed section in the back. No? Okay. No color offering introduced after 1932 has been found in etched Portia. Zip. So that means no moonlight from 1936, no Windsor blue from 1937, no pistachio from 38, or La Rosa or mocha from 38, mandarin gold in 49. What do we got? Late dark emerald from 1949, milk from 1954. None of that in Portia. Never find it. All right. And then, of course, any Portia or any color from the reopening period, post 1954, you're not going to find in Portia because Portia had the plug was pulled by then, right? 52. So, why was Portia made in such a wide spectrum of colors, but in most cases with such limited availability? The answer to that is one of timing. Portia's initial introduction in 1932 happened at the very tail end of the etched color craze. Consumer taste was shifting. They wanted a brighter look. The popularity of color items continued to exist, but not on etched pieces. And I want to give you a few examples to think about. Clio, introduced in the 20s. It's actually hard to find a piece of Clio that's not in color. Again, going back to my eBay survey, 275 listings of Clio I found in January. Only 8 were in crystal. 97% of the items were in color. Let's look at another etching. Let's look at Gloria, introduced in 1930. 72% of the items on eBay in color. All right, 32. Let's go back 31. Let's talk about Diane. 260 items on eBay, 8% in color. Next year, Portia, 1932, 6% in color. 1933, Elaine, 140 items on eBay, 0 in color. Now, I'm not saying there aren't pieces in Elaine in color, because there are, but they're extremely rare. Rose Point, 1934, 1.4% in color. 73% of that was gold encrusted Crown Tuscan. So do you see a pattern here? As time went on, for whatever reason, the popularity of etched color pieces fell off a cliff in the early 1930s. They grew weaker and weaker with each passing year. People were suffering from color fatigue, depression fatigue, and they wanted to change. And crystal was bright and fresh at that point in time. And that's where the trend was headed. Portia can be found in a broad spectrum of color because it just happened to be in the right place at the right time. It benefited from being released right on top of several new colors from Henry Helmer's, and it caught the very tail end of the etched color wave. If you're going to feature a fresh new etching at a trade show, aka Portia, why not team it with one of the fresh new colors from Henry Helmer's, right? For that wow factor, more bang for the buck. Orders would still have trickled in for more traditional colors, for the ambers and for the gold crystals, but the popularity was just not there to sustain it, as the consumer's preference was shifted. Okay, so quickly here, I just want to touch on a few other things. By the time the 1940 catalog rolled out in January of that year, Portia was at the high water mark. Portia was at the high water mark on its 20-year run. In 1940, Cambridge, in the catalog, 20 pages devoted to to Portia. They were shared with Diane, but in that same year, Rose Point had approximately the same number of pages devoted to it in the catalog. There were 20 pages for Portia, 21 for Rose Point. And predominantly it was the 3400 line that was used. Although it's important to note the catalog also contained items in Gadroon in the 3500 line, Tally-Ho, and Martha, and Pristine. Stemware contained its own special generic section in the 40 catalog. Important to note that earlier stems found in Portia that were in 3120 and 3124 had been dropped, and new listings appeared for the very popular 3130 stem, as well as the 3575 stem, which is known as Stradivari or Regency. Okay, so I counted that there were 9 stems in total for Portia. Back to my listing here. In the early years, 3121, 3126, and 3124. Mid-year, they came out with a 3035, predominantly gold crystal, but available in other colors. The 3120 stem, which has the 1 diamond at the top and a tapered stem. And also the 3122. And then in the later years, we had the 3130 stem, the 3575 Stradivari or Regency, and then the Sherry's, the 7966. So, in conclusion, what do we have? We have Portia being available in 11 colors. The colors that I don't have are the royal blue. I don't have a display piece in that, and I don't have an amber piece. I'm not amber, but ebony piece. I didn't think, and Lynn didn't think that there was an ebony piece in Portia. until we found out that Les has one. He's got a 32-ounce decanter in ebony. He's got a decanter set. So, and I only have the one little piece in the willow blue. So you can draw your own conclusion in terms of rarity. But after you get past the big three of Crown Tuscan, Amber, and Gold Crystal, you know, it's a crapshoot in terms of availability. So I would say 11 color offerings is really the strength of Portia. There were only 4 for Rose Point. So I would say Portia is the little sister. If they made it in volume in Rose Point, they probably made a few in Portia as well. Very, very few. If you see a unique item in Portia that you really like, whether it be in color or crystal, you better buy it because you probably, you know, in reality, may never come across that piece again. So I'll say whichever etching is your favorite, that's up to you to decide. I've got a 30-year bias towards Portia, but there's a large selection, as we all well know, to choose from, and they're like children in your own family. They all have common characteristics, but each is uniquely different, and I guess they're basically all yours to enjoy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Does someone drive a Subaru with cup crazy plates?